Hey there, it's Tina Logassi from Prim Heirloom Designs, and I am about to show you how to make the third wise man in my Nativity Scene Series. If you've been following along, we've already done the wise men 1 and 2, so this is your last one to complete. And I'm just going to run quickly through the materials list. As always, you're going to want to print your pattern pieces onto sulky at full scale. You got a little scale bar here to show you that if you put a ruler up against it, you'll see if you're printing to the correct scale. The first sheet should really ideally be printed on sulky because of all the embroidery. And the second sheet is up to you. You can either print it on sulky, quilter's freezer paper, or just plain paper, cut it out, pin it in place, and cut the pieces out. In terms of additional items that you need for this, you're going to need wool and wool blend felt in all the colors that are specified in the color breakdown, or your own colors. It is completely up to you. All right, and just a quick note regarding the felt, you do need to pre-shrink your felt as per the pattern instructions, and even if you bought the kit, if you're going to be using sulky. And then I also have all of my matching flosses, and these are all identified on the color chart. Then I have for seed beads, and in this pattern, I only need the iridescent white seed beads, so I've got those there. And then I need a 20mm bead for the head, and this is going to get painted. In the original instructions, I specify an oil-based marker to color the face, which you absolutely can do. But painting, because I do so many of these, I've just switched to an acrylic paint, and I'm working with a medium brown today, so I'll show you that. I also have some hand beads here. These are 8mm size. I have pipe cleaners, and for this, I just need 2 pipe cleaners for this project. And then I've got a 2-inch. About a 2-inch piece of interfacing. This is craft interfacing. Medium or heavyweight would be great to use. That's just for the beard. Black wool yarn. I have this one, which actually has some gray running through it that I think will look really cool on his beard. But in this sample, I did just use straight black yarn. And then I need a gel pen. This is a Sakura Jelly Roll number 8 pen, and this is for painting on his face. If you get the kit, you do not need this. And then in addition to that, we need some rice to weigh the bottom. Stuffing fork or purple thing I recommend to help you with stuffing the small pieces. White glue, I recommend Eileen's craft glue. I use the quick dry, but you can use the regular one as well, the original. Hot glue gun, wire cutters, basic sewing supplies. So the first thing we're going to do is cut out these pattern pieces, leave a bit of a border around them. You're not going to cut around the final outline until the very end. All right, so I've got all of my pieces cut out. You can tell that I just left a bit of a border around all of them, and I'm going to start sticking them onto the different felts and such. So this is the interfacing, and the beard guide is what gets put on that. So you're just going to peel this off, and it's sticky on the back, and that goes directly on that piece, and then that gets put aside. Next one is the hat band, and it's the only piece in a crew. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that on. Okay, so I've got all of my pattern pieces attached to the sulky, and I've got them separated into 2 piles here. These ones do not have any embroidery on them, so I'm going to put them aside. And these ones have embroidery and beading. So one by one, I'm going to work through these. I'm going to pull my beads out. All right, the first stitch I'm going to show you is this little V kind of stitch with the bead in the center. That's used in several places on these pattern pieces. Okay, so starting with one of these arms, I'm going to come in with DMC 347, and I'm going to actually start at the point of the V, just because then I can better hide my thread tail. And I'm just going to make a single stitch along each of those lines and go around. So you can see this little pattern here is comprised of 4 little V shapes, and then in the center you end up with a bead. So that you're going to repeat in these 2 sections as well. And I'm just going to put this aside because I will come back to it off camera. Okay, so then now I've got a strand of DMC 746, and I'm gonna put that center bead right in there. It's an iridescent white bead that I'm using. So I'm just coming in on one side of that circle, and I'm going to pick up a bead and go in on the other side, and there you go. So that's going to go in the center. Then third part on here is this upper line is a back stitch, and that back stitch is done with DMC 3362. So I'm just going to come inboard a bit because I'm trying to hide that knot, and I'm going to come back on myself, and I'm following along this guideline, and I'm just doing a simple straightforward back stitch. If you don't know how to do one, if you can't figure it out from this video, just Google it. There's so much information out there on basic embroidery, and I may do a video at one point to outline how to do it. But basically I'm just creating the stitches of approximately the same length, and you just go back and forth along this guideline to end up with a very even straight stitch. That is how you work on the arm. So I'm going to finish these pieces off camera. The tunic has the same thing happening along this bottom, so those I'll work on later. And then the skirt, you have that same star pattern. That's done just with a different color, but it's the exact same principle, and you're going to be doing that all along there. So now I'm going to move into the vest. So if you're following along with my color selections, the vest is again 3362, and you're just going to create stitches along these crosses, one big stitch down and one big stitch across. And you're going to do that all the way up on both the left and the right vest. All right, the next piece is the vest back. This might look complicated, but it's literally just a series of X's side by side. So all you're gonna do is I'm gonna come in here and do this last kind of a half of an X. And this is again with the DMC 3362, but you'll use whichever color combination you are wanting to use. All right, and then I'm gonna come back in here, and I'm going to do one big stitch across that X, and then come into this bottom and do another stitch. And I'm just going to continue along with that pattern and get that in there, and then follow up with the second row as well. So it's just two big stitches, two single stitches across to create that pattern. All right, next we've got the star, and this is where I'm pulling out my gold floss. It's a little tricky to work with because it is a metallic. Basically you've got these dots all around here, and then plus in the center, those are going to get beads, and it's actually yellow beads. I misspoke earlier, but this pattern also needs yellow beads. And I'm just going to come in, and much like you've already done, I'm going to do a back stitch with the gold floss down each of these lines, and work slowly so that my floss doesn't get stuck anywhere. It's a little trickier to work with than regular floss, but it does help to go a little slower. All right, so I'm going to continue that down all of the lines. All right, so you can see I've gone ahead and I finished up the back stitching all through there. And then afterwards I will come back in with my yellow beads, and I will attach them just like how we did before in all of these locations. All right, then you've got the hat top, and again, it's just a simple back stitch, only this time you're using the DMC, the Light Effect 703, which is this nice metallic emerald green color. And it's just back stitching up and down all of those lines. And then the last piece is this one, which I will show you. It's a layer of several different colors. We've got DMC 3362, and I'm going to start by making this cross that is sitting inside of that box. So it's just like the cross that you were making on the vest, and we're just going to go across both sides of the cross, and so I'll be continuing that all the way up. All right, so I'm coming in here with DMC 471, and I'm going to just make this box shape that goes around the cross. So I'm coming in. Essentially, this is just like a back stitch. You're going to come to your first stitch. All right, so you're going to go around and create that box shape. Just 4 stitches. Okay, and my final stitch in this arrangement is to come in and do a large box around it all. So I'm just going to go in and out of each of these points. And that again will continue up the length of the scarf. All right, so this gives you a bit of the overview of the embroidery. I'm gonna finish these up off camera, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how they're looking and what the next step is. Okay, so you can see how that's looking. So one thing I want to show you is how I do paint my beads. And I also, at the same time, I also paint the hand beads for this one. You can paint whatever skin tone you would like. I just like to have a burnt umber is what I usually use. And I take a skewer. This is a floral block. A skewer and a pipe cleaner should be enough to, oh, if I can get them in. I try to reuse my pipe cleaners because I don't like to waste them. Sometimes they're harder to get on over the old paint. But that holds them on here pretty tightly, so they're not going to move around on me. Just need to get a second one on. And then the hand beads, they just go directly onto one of these. Okay, and then I'm just literally going to take my paint and go over this. I do like to do 2 coats to get nice coverage. Try to get up and around the whole opening, but you can always go back on those. I find with the small beads, I do usually have to go back on that. Okay, and if you're happy with that shade, which is actually quite nice because you still have a bit of the wood grain, you can leave it there. Do a second coat on the hand beads, and then we'll move on to building this guy up. Hey guys, I am back and I am done the embroidery. So the next step is to take the pieces that have embroidery on them and the sulky film and have a lukewarm water bath, and you're going to soak that film off so it will dissolve in the water. So I just want to show you how the embroidery came out on these pieces as I go, and then you can get an idea. Make sure that yours look similar. And when I come to these pieces where there's a lot of sulky without any stitching on, I'm going to go ahead and peel that off and cut it close to the stitching so that my water doesn't get unnecessarily clogged up with sulky goo. All right, there's the other vest piece. There's the tunic fronts are both going to get pulled off. Same with the arms. Okay, and then I got the star. So once I've got all my pieces in the water bath, I'm going to let them soak for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and show you how to remove the sulky. And I'm just going to scooch these ones over, make space for this bigger piece. And you can already start to see it dissolving off. Okay, my pieces have soaked and they're ready to rub the sulky off. So all I'm going to do, let me see how it's just a little bit of stuff left. I'm just going to rub them and pay special close attention to around the beads because that's usually where it gets hung up a bit. And you see I get my nail in there a little bit and kind of rub back and forth. But don't tug on it. You don't want to deform your pieces. And then when you're happy with it, I just fold and squeeze out the excess and then lay them out onto a towel. Okay, so I'm just finishing up my last piece here, the skirt. It's going around each of the beads. Make sure I get all that sulky off. And then I'm going to put these pieces aside. They're all laying flat and they're not touching each other, so there won't be any color bleed. And they're going to get put aside for a few hours or until you know that they're nice and dry to work with. I may even leave them overnight. So I will be back with you to show you the embroidery. Hey guys, welcome back. I have all of my embroidery pieces nicely dried. And now we're ready to start on the figure. So these I'm going to just put in a pile over here. And I'm taking the torso, front, and back because those are the 2 that we're starting with. And I'm just going to peel the sulky off. And on this piece, you will notice there are those 2 line markings. And that's to indicate where you want to start and stop your whip stitching for this first step. So the first step is that you're going to whip stitch all the way around, and this will give you an idea of how much you need to leave open. So I'm just going to use that to help guide me. A whip stitch, and I'm going to continue all the way around up to approximately that point over here. All right, so you can see that I have done my whip stitching all the way around. The next step is I'm going to go to the bottom and try to open it up because we're going to create a bit of a box there. And you want to line this seam up with this bottom seam so you can feel it through. And then you're going to be stitching horizontally across approximately a ½ inch down from the top. So I'm measuring just from that point, and so that takes me up to about here. Okay, and I'm just going to go back and forth. It doesn't have to be tidy. I'm just doing a running stitch, and I'm going to be going back and forth on myself, just like so. Okay, and then you're going to flip over to the other side, and you're going to repeat that, so you end up making this kind of a box shape in this bottom area. So you can see I've boxed in that bottom. So the next step is to carefully flip this right side out, okay, just like that. All right, and then you're going to take your piece of pipe cleaner, and it's going to get glued just along the back to kind of make a bit of a spine. You can do this with regular white glue if you prefer. It's up to you. And now you can stuff this. And at about this point, at about this point, I may have to add a bit more or take some out. We'll see. But I'm just going to take my embroidery floss again and continue stitching this shut. So I'm just going to pick up either side there and continue on with my whip stitch. Okay, well, when you make your way to this point where you're on the other side of the neck, you just kind of shove in there and see if you can fit a little bit more stuffing in, which I can, and then I'm going to go ahead and keep closing this opening off. Okay, so you've got your little torso ready to go. The next step is the knees. So you've got two sets here. You've got a left knee and a right knee. Just going to pull them off. Okay, so you've got your left knee and your right knee. And for both of these, I'm going to actually start with the left knee. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to start whip stitching around this area and come up here and then leave this open. Okay, so you can see that I've sewn all the way around here and I have this nice big opening in here in which I can stuff with rice. And you're going to want to make sure you can get up into this knee part. So I'm pushing the rice in there. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I'm just going to continue and whip stitch this closed. All right, so you've got one knee done. So for this one, you're going to whip stitch all the way around here and then leave this open for stuffing. All right, so I've got the knee whip stitched all the way around. Once you're satisfied it's nicely filled, then you can go ahead and seal up this top. All right, now that you've got both of your knees, you can glue them together. So you're basically just going to be lining up these back bits. Let's just stick a little bit of glue in there. Back is aligned and that they're flat on the bottom there. And then you're going to take your torso, feel for where that pipe cleaner is. It's there for me. So I'm going to make sure that that's positioned towards the back. And then this, I'm actually just going to put some glue on top of both those legs and pop this body form right on top like that. And I'm just going to hold it for a moment. All right, so next you're going to do his boot. And he only has one foot sticking out of there because he is kneeling, so that's why we only have one boot that we need to do for this figure. Pulling off the sulky, and for this one you're just going to line up the pieces and whip stitch around, and you're going to start at about there, you're going to start there, stop at about there, and then start stuffing the toe area. Alright, so I've come around the toe, and now I'm just going to take a bit of stuffing. Hopefully in one of these videos I will actually remember to bring my purple thing up from my other sewing room. And then you're just going to finish off by stuffing the upper part of the boot. Alright, the next step involves the skirt. So for the skirt and the body, you're going to want to find the center of your skirt and line that up with the center of the legs. Alright, which is here. And you do want to make sure that you've got enough felt coming down that's going to hit the floor. You're going to want to glue in this center part. I don't know how well you can see this because this is a dark color that I'm working with, but I'm going to glue there so it's not going to shift so much on me. Okay, once you've got the glue in there, you're going to want to add a little drop on the high leg, on the knee that's coming up, and press that in. Okay, and then you're going to take this and bring it down, add a bit of glue in there to hold it, and then on here. So you're basically just kind of trying to manipulate this piece of fabric so that you can kind of see where the legs are, because that's what gives this really interesting look. You can feel like you can actually see the legs under there. Okay, and then we'll come back to this, but that'll end up coming in as well. And then we're going to come wrap around this side. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this tight. And this, you definitely want to hit the halfway mark. Around there. The other thing you can do, if this is intimidating for you, you can pin it first. Like you can use pins and kind of like try to hold it as well as you can in place. And once you're happy with it, then you can glue or sew it on. because sewing is less of a commitment, you can easily pull it apart, whereas the glue is a little more challenging. All right, so then I'm going to pull this around. All right, and then you are going to be stitching up this. So it's really just this bit that I'm going to secure. Then you're going to kind of have a look at this figure, and I'm seeing, all right, so I'm going to be sewing this down, but the front, I want it to come in more. Like I want this knee more defined. So see how if I push in there, that works for me. So I'm going to actually throw a little bit of glue on the inside of that one knee, pull it in, and you can see now I've like defined that knee. Actually, this knee in addition to that has come out, and I don't know how well you can see it from that angle, but I'm starting to really like how these knees are looking. The other thing you can do is you can add a fold in the skirt. If you like that look, like I did that here, I added a bit of glue up there and I end up with this nice jut out. So I think I'm going to do that here. You can also accomplish that inside the glues. You can just put a stitch in it. Actually, maybe we'll just do that. I'll put a stitch in there, pull this together like that. And I like how that's going to hang. So I'm going to just come in here with my needle and matching floss and just put a couple stitches in there. And that gives I think that gives the look that I want. I'm going to just basically take my needle in here and come out up into a spot where it's not visible, and I'm going to tie off up here so you don't see any straggling threads on the body. All right, so now we're going to move to the back. So the knee that is down, where he's fully kneeling down on, that's the one that's going to have the boot coming off. So I'm going to put a bit of glue in there and stick that in there. Again, you can also sew that in place. And now I'm going to come back and sew up his skirt, but I'm going to leave that little bottom bit open for the little foot to come through. Okay, so that's about as far as I'm going to go, because then you've got his foot coming up, and then this just kind of rests around it. Finish off face. So I'm going to put the body aside and my glue gun aside. We're going to go back to the little bead. So the hand beads are done. If you want to come back in here and fill in any spots that maybe didn't get covered, you can do that. And then for the head, I'm just going to take, actually I'll start with my pencil and I'll draw on an indicating line so that I know where I want to go with the eyes. We're going to do a center line like we've done on the other figures. And then, I don't know how well you can see this, but I can see it. And so you should be able to see the pencil line enough to do this, even though you painted the bead. All right, so I'm just going to do 2 downturned eyes. All right, and that's all that you do. I'm gonna let that dry, and then I can erase the pencil line. And we're gonna move on to the arms. All right, so for the arms, I just like to always make sure I've got things oriented the way they're gonna be assembled. And I've got my pipe cleaners here. So I'm just going to bend them and line them up on the arm backs, like so. And you want it extending just a little bit at that end. Okay, this is just going to give a little bit of structure to those arms. All right, and then those are just going to get glued into place. All right, and then next you're going to come in with your moss green 2 strands of embroidery floss, and you're going to put one of the tops onto the bottom, and you're going to start to sew around. I start at one end, and I'm going to continue on until I'm past this curve, and then I'm going to start to stuff the arm. All right, so I've gone this far. I've stuffed the upper part of the arm, and I'm just going to keep sewing until I get to the bottom, and then we'll continue to stuff it. So here are the 2 arms complete, and next I'm going to take my figure, and they're going to get glued on either side. They're going to get glued on either side of the torso, and don't worry if you get a little messy like I just did, that'll all be hidden. All right, and I've sort of angled mine so that the arm that's holding the staff is raised up a bit, and then this one is down a little bit because I'm going to, it's almost like his hand's resting on his knee by the time you curve his back. Actually, we can probably curve his back right now. Okay, so it's this sort of idea here. So this arm will be out and this one comes down like that. All right, so the next step is the tunic. I've got my tunic front and back. Make sure that you've got the raw sides on the inside. And I'm just gonna sew across the shoulder seams with the whip stitch. All right, then you're gonna take this tunic and you're gonna slip it over the neck and wrap the shoulder pieces around the arms. And then you're gonna sew this on him. So you're gonna start underneath one of the arms. So I'm gonna start with this one and I'm gonna come in there right at that corner and close this tunic up. So I'm going to come over here for you to see it better. Just like that. All right, so I've sewn up this side. I've left this bottom part open. And I'm just going to make sure this is lined up correctly right at his side. And I'm going to come over to the other side. And again, do the same thing. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've sewn up the other side. And got the tunic nicely in position. So you can see on the sides you've got that cutout, which kind of helps it slide over top of the knees. And yet it stays nice and close to the body. So for the vest, you're just going to take your pieces. You got your back piece, and I'm actually going to trim up that little bit of extra floss that's hanging down. And then you're going to take your two front pieces and line them up on either side. And you're just going to sew at the shoulder seams. Okay, so I've got my two shoulder seams done. Then much like how you did the tunic, this is going to go right over top. And then you're going to sew those side seams on the vest. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to sew this seam along here. Okay, so you can see that that seam is done. And I'm going to now come back in and do the same on this side. All right, so you can see I finished the vest. I'm just going to position it a little bit better on him. It looks good. And then afterwards, if we need to drop in a touch of glue to hold in place, we can, but this scarf will kind of keep it down where you want it. So at this point, I'm going to come back to the face and I'm going to erase that line so I don't forget about it. Okay, the next step is to do the hat. So we're going to take the hat lower and then the hat upper, and they are purposely two different sizes. So basically you're going to sew around and you're going to do your best to sort of gather this piece as you go. Show you how I do that. And so I'm just going to kind of like push it in a bit. So as I whip stitch around, moving this piece and kind of making it pucker a little bit, because I want to create this bit of a dome area. All right, and if you see that, oh, I got quite a bit of stuff to get through, just go a little bit more aggressive on it. And every time I come to like a section like this, I'll split the difference kind of in half. And try to get all this gathered in here. Now I got this kind of puffy bottom part. So now you're going to stuff some wool stuffing. And I'm actually going to use some, I got this pair of tweezers here. And I'm going to use them. But again, you can use whatever tool you want. Okay, so you want something like that. You can see it on the finished version, how it is. All right, and then the next step is to take your hat band and you're gonna sew the ends together just with the whip stitch. All right, and then the next step, much like you did for the second wise man, is this gets sewn in a bit of a circle around here. So I'm going to kind of judge where I need my glue for this. I'm just going to put a ring right around this opening and kind of position it. If you feel like you didn't get enough glue in the right spots, which I don't think I did, I'm going to come back in here now and just add a bit more around to make sure it's secured. Again, you can always sew this in place. All right, I'm going to let that dry for a moment. Okay, and once your little hat is done, take your bead and make sure you've got it positioned so that his eyes are downwards. Okay, just like that. The next step is the beard. All right, so if you've been following along with the beards on any of the other characters, you'll have an idea of what I've done here. I've taken my yarn and cut it into the lengths, and I've taken apart in the plies into smaller pieces, and now I'm going to take a comb and kind of open up the fibers a bit. And I'm really liking this interesting yarn that I picked up. All right, so I'm going to do this one again just with the hairspray. I haven't figured out. This is the hairspray that I've really been enjoying using. I'm going to tap through it And so per the instructions, you're using white glue to do this, and it's the same sort of thing. You're just kind of tapping the glue through. You're just trying to get these fibers to kind of get more strength and some volume. I tend to always go too crazy on the beard, so I'm just gonna assume that that's probably enough, just those few strands. And my hands are a bit sticky from the hairspray. That's okay. So I'm gonna take my cutout. This is my beard template, and I'm just gonna go in this little opening, this hole, and fill it with glue. And of course, it's not all going to stick, so you're going to have to do this in several layers. And if you're not comfortable with the glue gun, you always have the option to use white glue. Okay, and that's on there pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut across this lighter line to get a nice straight edge up there. And now I'm going to cut off these sides. And actually, I might just take off this extra bit at the bottom on this one. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm left with. And I think I'm going to go ahead and assemble the head to the body first, and then we'll come back and do the beard. So make sure that neck is nicely through, and that, yeah, so that'll go right on there. Take his head and throw a little bit of glue in the bottom there, and find the front and glue that, twist it a little bit if you need to, onto the neck. And then once that's on there, you're going to want to put his beard on. Oh, that's going to need some trimming. And that's fine. So I'm going to glue along here, and he will also get a mustache. And if you have it lifting away like mine is, just add some more glue in there. All right, so while that's setting, don't worry that you can see this stuff. We're going to give him a nice mustache that'll hide all that. If you were concerned, you can come in and trim that up with your scissors. And actually, I'm going to save probably some of this lovely beard, what we cut off, to do his mustache, because it's already got some texture in it. So I'm probably gonna shorten it quite a bit. I'm gonna go like here. I'm gonna make like little cuts. Try to make it like look natural. Okay, that's not bad. And then I'm gonna take some of this, and I like to kind of roll it a little, and I'm gonna put it across here. I'm probably gonna do more than one piece. So this one, I think I might just do it higher so that I know that that extra stuff's covered, and a little bit in the corners. Okay, and there is some here that's not stuck. Pull that off. All right, and I'm just gonna take one more little piece. This is all you just need to play with it and see how you want yours to look. And I'm gonna put one more piece on top there. It's a bit of a wilder beard and mustache. And then the final thing is I'm gonna glue it down just a little bit, that mustache to what's back here, to hold it a little bit down. Okay, and I really like how that's looking. All right, so that's the beard. So the scarf is the easiest thing ever, because you literally just have to fold it in half and find the back, and that gets centered back here. And you're gonna go around his shoulders under the beard that you just made, and it's just gonna kind of like loosely go as such. All right, I'm happy with where that's placed. I'm just gonna stick a bit of glue underneath here to hold it, and in here, and then one little drop back here. And while I am here, I want these arms to come in more, and from like all the movement before of putting on the clothing, like they'll get bent out of place sometimes. So I'm just going to add a little bit more glue under there, and I'm going to move this arm more into the position that I want it. And I'm going to do the same with this one. This one, I want it to be kind of down more at his side. So I'm just going to go right up into the armpit area and pull that arm down and just hold it like that for a moment, and then that should end up how I want it. And now that I'm looking at it, the beard is a little too thick, so once this dries, I'm going to come back in and thin it. So to thin it, I'm just going to come in with my scissors and pretend like I'm a hairdresser thinning hair, and just try to come in and pull out some random pieces. So I don't want it to look too symmetrical. I want it to be a little uneven, like he's been on a long journey and has not been to the hairstylists. Okay, I've thinned his beard a little more. I could literally play with this for hours, but I'm not going to. So we're gonna leave it at that. The next step is the feather. So you need a 1/2 inch length of the pipe cleaner, okay? And then you're gonna wanna trim all the hair off of that. All right, so the next step for the feather, I'm gonna put this hair away, is you've got your tidied up pipe cleaner, and I'm just gonna pull the sulky off gently off of this feather piece. And then you're gonna glue the feather to the pipe cleaner, like that. And you're gonna let that dry. Okay, and then you're gonna take some gold embroidery floss, or sorry, this is 3852. Glue the end down, and you're gonna start to wrap this base of this feather. Okay, bring it around. Missed a spot, so I'm just gonna come back up here a little further. And partway through, if you want, you can add a little glue because that, will secure it. Okay. And then you're gonna add some glue in at the end so it doesn't come undone on you. And just wrap that through that glue a few times. All right, and then you can either just glue this as is right in the center. I like to sink this pipe cleaner in, so I'm going to grab a really thick needle and come in here. I think what you can use, if you don't have a really fat needle, you might be able to start a hole if you're very careful with your with some very small scissors. If you need it bigger than that, now that it's started, you can come in with a knitting needle, kind of open it up a little. All right, and then you can sink that in. I think I'm just going to go a little further with the knitting needle because I'm going to move some of that stuffing out of the way, and that'll go in like that. So I'm just going to add a bit of glue in that center. Don't need a lot. And then push that down. All right, and then you're going to want to take the tail, and this one you're going to be really careful when you pull off the sulky, because it's such a long, thin piece that you do risk deforming it if you're too rough with it. Okay, and you can see like this one has gotten deformed just from years of tugging on it. It's just going to get glued right in behind, and that curve is going to follow the curve of the back. So it'll be like in this direction. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue just right at the base of that feather. Tweezers to really push that in there. Oh, it's very close to being done now. The last step is the star, and for this you need the metallic gold embroidery floss. Glue it at the top, add some glue. Okay, and once that's secured, then you're just gonna twist it as such. You can even like roll the pipe cleaner as you hold this, which goes faster. This ends up with a bit of a candy cane look to it. And a bit of glue at the bottom there. And do a wrapping around. I'll cut it off. So there's the staff, and then for the star. And then you're going to take your star, the back, and decide which end you think looks, if you got one end that doesn't look very good, that'll be the end that you'll pop inside. A little bit of glue, put that in there. And then your star top. Don't worry if it's a little rough looking on the edges. When you start to whip stitch, it'll come together. All right, so then that'll go on top like that. And next we're gonna whip stitch all the way around. All right, and for whip stitching this, again, I'm gonna start in the center, and so that I can hide that knot. And I'm just going around the edges. All right, so I did want to show you, this is the staff finished. And I do have to say, it's one of the trickier parts because of these points, lining them up. There's a lot going on in this little piece. So I have a couple of other options that I think would work really great for this. I used the same star pattern, and I cut it out of a piece of gold glitter felt and metallic felt, just to show you that you could also just do that. Cut out 2 pieces of this, 2 pieces of this, or one and one, which is kind of what I did. I'm just curious. So what I'm going to do is glue that on just as another option. You might like this better. Okay, and then you can decide if you want to stitch all the way around. I think I'm gonna try to stitch this one in metallic gold and see how that comes out and see how that looks on the figure. All right, so I just want to show you how this other version turned out. I'm quite happy with it, actually, especially the glitter side. That's the metallic, but I think I might go ahead and mount that one on this figure. It's just a nice another option for you. Yeah, so for this piece, just to put that in his hand, you're just kind of gonna measure how far down it touches the ground and where you need to put that drop of glue. I'm gonna put it right on the hand and make sure that I've got the glitter part facing forward because I do quite like how that came out. All right, and that is your third wise man done. And I have to say, these are probably, these take the longest because they've got all of the embroidery on them. So you'll see some of the next figures will go a bit quicker now. All right, see you next time.